Okay, it's official. The Nintendo Switch 2 at this point is just... That was the most insane direct I have ever watched. And yes, I'm a little bit excited. And when I say I mean, that was just the most ridiculous hour of game presentation I've ever seen. I have blown my tiny little brain beyond comprehension. There was so much to take in, so much together. Nintendo have cooked something that I think is going to absolutely change handheld gaming forever. Once again, basically, there's some amazing games coming. They run incredibly. Nintendo have cooked up some kind of black magic inside of this thing. Okay, slightly in the future, AJ here, just to interrupt. Slightly in the past, AJ, we have a pre-order price of $449 and the date of April the 9th. So ignore what past AJ says. We now know the price and the pre-order date. $449, it's bang on exactly what we thought it was going to be, and I think that this is going to represent huge value. I'm definitely day one pre-ordering this. Let me know, and back to past AJ, so bye. Absolute confirmation on some really key parts. That were some big questions before that. June the 5th launch date is the big one, so we know it's going to land almost exactly after the in-hand presentations. Those live preview events are happening as we thought it would be. We did see that there'll be two launch models. You have the straight up Switch 2, and there'll also be a Switch 2 Mario Kart World version, as a hint there as to what the launch title is going to be. That will include a digital version of Mario Kart. Onto some of the hardware that jumped out at me straight away. Some of the really exciting bits that have been confirmed. A 7.9 inch screen, so a huge increase in the size there, almost touching 8 inches, which is, we know, the sweet spot for most people. It is a 1080p resolution, 120 Hz, so up to 120 FPS that you can play on this. It is confirmed HDR, which is epic, LCD. We thought this was going to be the case. We didn't think it was going to be OLED. Now, if there was any bone of contention in this whole thing, if there was any little frayed corner that people are going to pick at as a reason not to buy the Switch 2, it's going to be this, the fact that the screen is not OLED. I'm totally fine with it. If it's going to be a HDR display that's going to be vibrant enough, the colours are going to pop enough, and you're going to get the performance, most importantly, I'm okay with it being LCD. Maybe in the future they'll drop an OLED model halfway through, or maybe they won't. Maybe it'll be good enough that we'll all forgive it. But I know if there's going to be one area that people are going to be slightly picking holes in, it's going to be that it's an LCD monitor. We have obviously the confirmation of the magnetic Joy-Cons with a lock button, bigger SL and SR buttons when you're playing on the Joy-Cons horizontally, larger joysticks. The mouse controls was shown off so massively. We saw so much of the mouse controls being used, and it's exactly like we thought. Wrist strap around, mouse control for when you're basically in tabletop mode. You can see it being used quite well in certain mini games that are in the Switch 2 Welcome game. Also in Mario Party Jamboree, and also some of the third-party games like Civ 7 that were showcased. You've seen mouse mode being utilised really well. I think what Nintendo are kind of pitching this at is going to sit somewhere in between kind of opening up accessibility for some of the more PC games that are going to be available on there, but also a more quirky, fun interaction that they can have on some of the first-party Nintendo mini-games and stuff like Mario Party Jamboree and stuff. Improved speakers as well. We'll wait and see what they're actually like when we go to the preview event next week on April the 11th. Built-in mic for game chat, I think, is a really interesting addition. They're using some kind of software to noise suppress. If there's background noise, it will just isolate your voice, even if the Switch is docked and at the other side of the room from you. My experience of these kind of noise suppression, these AI tools for suppressing noise from background, is never that great. So we'll see what Nintendo are doing here. To be honest, it's not really high up on my list of things I worry about. But game chat was a really important part that they did focus on. We're going to touch on that later because we found out exactly what the C button's for, finally. We've got the larger kickstand and it can lay flat for tabletop mode. The dual USB-C top and bottom for accessories and charging. Most importantly, charging when we're in tabletop mode. So no longer do you have a broken cable kind of being jammed underneath your Switch. The big one, 256 gigabytes of storage as standard. That's pretty cool. They also claim that it's going to have faster read and write speeds on the internal storage, but no actual numbers as to what they are. The biggest part for me that got me really excited straight away was the dock. Firstly, has active cooling. That is amazing because it does suggest that it is running at higher processing when it is docked, and we do get 4K HDR when docked. That We're talking about a Nintendo device. That's insane. We're talking about Switch in 4K HDR when docked. And of course, that fan's going to really kick in and help cool the device whilst we're in 4K HDR. I'm still kind of mind blown that that's going to be possible. We now move on as well for external storage to micro SD express cards. Again, faster read-write speeds with that, but it does also mean that your old micro SD cards that you use on Switch 1 will no longer be compatible because obviously we're using a different format now. They will have a system for system transfer between your old Switch and your new Switch, so you will need to keep your old Switches before you change over, obviously. But, you know, just in case you were thinking of selling now while the prices are still good. They're launching a new Switch Pro controller as well at launch date, which features back paddles, which is quite a cool addition from that. But onto that C button and the chat things, I'm just kind of rushing through the hardware. I know. I just want to get this out because there's so much that's crammed into this launch. It's kind of blown my mind what we've seen. The chat button, anyway, so on the new Nintendo Joy-Con 2, they have an official name. I don't know why they need to do that, but the C button is a chat button. It brings up a chat menu, basically like a Discord built into Nintendo where you can chat to your friends. You can also share gameplay with screen sharing mode, which I thought was quite cool. You can share your gameplay, you can watch other people's gameplay, or you can have your gameplay and their gameplay all windowed underneath. So you can chat, and let's say if you're playing Mario Kart together, you can see what they're doing. It's pretty cool. You can also screen share when they're playing different games. So if just you and your friends are online playing different games, you can still hang out with a voice chat using the mic in the Nintendo Switch. No headphones needed or microphone. It's quite a nice idea. I like the fact that they're really embracing the idea of moving the sofa online and making the Switch 2 a very sociable thing, even when you're playing on your own. They did also then, at the same point, show the Nintendo Switch camera. This plugs in via USB-C to the top of your Nintendo Switch and is a Nintendo camera for your front room, so you can use it in these voice chat sessions. It has some kind of green screen thing, a bit like those dodgy Zoom calls that you see, where you're cut out from the background and overlaid over the gameplay. It also, if you're playing 4-player on a sofa, say you're playing Mario Party, it also can use one camera for all 4 people, and it will cut them out successfully for their avatars in the game. Really cool feature. It's not something that I'm particularly excited about, but it's nice to see them embracing the idea of chat and voice chat for once. It's not a particularly Nintendo thing to do, but also doing that and making this kind of online gameplay more sociable, even when you're not playing the same games. And that's something that's really nice to see. Now, onto the games itself. And for me, this is where it got really exciting. The hardware, most of it, we kind of knew what was going to happen, probably barring the 4K HDR output from the Switch when it's docked. But the games is where it got really exciting for me. And I think at this point in the presentation, they split it up. But when you condense all the games, you realize Nintendo have cooked something absolutely groundbreaking. And I think the combination of the first-party titles and how good they look, and the third-party titles that are coming and how good they look, is really going to change a lot. I would suspect that this is going to really step on the toes of devices like the Steam Deck. I think the Switch 2, I'm going to say it, could be a Steam Deck killer. Yeah, I said it. Hyperbole activated. There's 3 types of games, according to Nintendo, that will play on the Switch 2. You have Switch 2 exclusive titles. You have certain Nintendo Switch games that themselves will be backwardsly compatible, but no confirmation on exactly what they meant by that and what titles they meant by that. And there will also be upgraded Switch games that will run on Switch 2, and there'll be a Switch 2 edition of your Nintendo Switch game. If you previously owned the Switch version of the game, you can buy the upgrade pack for that game, and obviously I would assume would be at a much reduced cost. If you don't, then you can just buy the Switch 2 version, and it's obviously going to run much better. And when we talk about some of those Switch games that are going to have Switch 2 editions, I want to firstly talk about Pokemon ZA and Metroid Prime 4, because they both looked absolutely cooking. Pokemon ZA, the massive criticism that everyone's leveled at it is that it just doesn't look very good, and everything we've seen has been gameplay that's been captured on the Nintendo Switch. And now when you see it on the Switch 2 version, it suddenly makes sense. And we suspected this, didn't we, when we looked at the last launch for the last Nintendo Direct last week, I think it was, and they showed a deeper dive of gameplay into Pokemon ZA and Metroid Prime 4, and they looked like they were kind of Vaseline smeared low-res editions, like they had been downsampled. And sure enough, when we see the gameplay now from the Switch 2, they were indeed, and they do now look like they're supposed to. Metroid Prime 4, the Switch 2 edition in particular, looks absolutely groundbreaking. It looks amazing. This is a Nintendo Switch game we're talking about. It looks insane. It will run at 4K 60. Yeah, let that sit in. With those textures and that lighting, it is gorgeous. You can get 1080 120 FPS with HDR, and if you're playing handheld, you can get 1080 60p. What? Or if you downsample it to 720, you can get 120 FPS. And going by the original Prime remasters on the Switch, they are really good at locking that frame rate and really achieving it. I think because of the way Metroid Prime's made, it's quite small zones that have to load, they really lock that frame rate. So when they say 4K 60, I fully believe it's going to be a locked 4K 60. Pokemon ZNA the same, and it just looks gorgeous. We of course also have Mario Kart World. Huge amount of detail given on that. It is an open world Mario where you race in like interconnected circuits on a massive island. There's certain modes in which you have to traverse through circuits that traverse your way through the entire island. You have 24 racers or 24 drivers per race, multiplayer, knockout tours. It looks, well, everyone loves Mario Kart. It's one of my favourite games of all time. I'm sure it is for you as well if you're watching Nintendo stuff. This looks like the perfect next addition to Mario Kart. A really great evolution of it. Zelda, we have Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 editions. And hopefully, finally, this will be the definitive way to play these games. Breath of the Wild really is a generation-spanning game at this point, isn't it? But the Switch 2 versions, you have a higher resolution, higher frame rates, HDR, and it now launches with a Zelda Notes app, a mobile phone app, which acts as like a companion app to offer map guidance and different notes for within the game as well. All really exciting to see. There was obviously loads more, but that was some of the key Nintendo first-party developments that were talked about on this. And then they started spamming us. They started spamming us with third-party developments that some I just genuinely didn't expect to see. We heard all the rumours leading up to this about all the third-party developments we're seeing, how many Microsoft and Xbox games are going to be there, and that wasn't the case at all, was it? What we saw was some of the biggest, hardest-hitting games, some of the hardest games to run on different devices being absolutely smashed down our faces on the Switch 2. Elden Ring? What the is Elden Ring doing on Nintendo? Borderlands 4, Cyberpunk 2070. Cyberpunk barely runs on my PS5, and we're seeing it on a Nintendo Switch. Insane. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the remasters 3 and 4. Hogwarts Legacy, which melted everyone's PCs. Yeah, that's coming. Split Fiction, an early contender for Game of the Year 2025. We're going to see that on Nintendo. Amazing. Star Wars Outlaws. All of them, well, most of them coming as launch titles as well. Day one launch titles. And then to top it all off on the games, we also see they are dropping Nintendo Gamecube to Nintendo Switch Online on launch day with Zelda's Wind Waker and also F-Zero GX and the Nintendo Gamecube controller. Honestly, I think Nintendo have changed everything with this. Looking at the gameplay captures in this Direct, it looks incredible. I think this is a generational leap from Nintendo, and it's going to, but in handheld gaming as well. It launches handheld gaming into the next generation. I think Nintendo shot the starting pistol on that, and everyone else is going to catch up, but everyone else has to still catch up. I think this could be, for me, the ultimate handheld console. I think it offers all of the great accessibility that you would come to expect from a console. You have all of the great first-party Nintendo games looking and playing fantastically. It's perfectly hybrid, so I can play it handheld and on my TV without any eGPU or any performance problems. And we have stunning third-party games finally coming to Nintendo that look and run amazingly. And there is many, many more to come as well. So I think truly the Switch 2 is going to change everything. And this Direct was absolutely insane. I'd love to know what you guys think, what your highlights were. I know I've missed out loads because it was like an hour long. Let me know down in the comments below. I do believe me and Andy are going to do a news video on this on Friday. It may even be live on the channel. In fact, I think it is going to be live on Friday. So join in the chat there if you are around on Friday afternoon in the UK. If not, it'll be available to watch afterwards. So join in the comments down below. We're going to dissect this in way more detail in that because it's going to be in a podcast. We'll be able to chat about it. And of course, just to remind you, we are going to London on the April the 11th to the Switch 2 preview event to get hands-on with that. That is exactly in a week's time. So let us know your questions down below, what you'd love us to find out about it when we're actually hands-on, more than just our hyperbole-ridden excitement. Let us know down in the comments. Just join in the comments down below. Join in the conversation. Once you're down and digging around, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel and all that good stuff, and then watch some more videos from us smashed up by my face. And I will, of course, see you lovely people next time. Goodbye. Goodbye. As Andy says, have a good day.